Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Tales of Herding God Part 186 based on novel. So let's start. King Yama wants to punish you. What have you done? In Hall of Wen Yuan, the past cult masters all frowned greatly, and cult master Zhu Yang asked, "Is the thing you did big or small? If it's big, why don't we revolt?" The other cult masters were instantly excited and started to plan on how to revolt and rouse the other dead people in Fengdu. They even thought of a few slogans for the revolt. Qin Mu hurriedly said, "It isn't a big matter. It's just a small matter, so there's no need to revolt. In the battle, when we blocked off the gods of high heavens on God-broken mountain range, I seized the primordial spirits of a few people who died in battle from Fengdu and revived them." The past cult masters became silent. After a moment, cult master Hu Jun slapped his thigh and said, "Where were we at?" Right, the flags used for the revolt. I feel we should use flags of the martial god." Qin Mu smiled and said, "Just a small matter." Small matter. Seizing people from Fengdu is a small matter. Numerous cult masters turned to look over at him with anger in their eyes and sneered. "Snatching people at the bridge of helplessness scared even us shitless. We thought Youdu had come to attack us. This is definitely not a small matter, and King Yama is going to behead you. If it was a small matter, we would ignore it and let King Yama take you, so he can give you 2 slaps on your buttocks before releasing you. But this is a huge matter which endangered the whole of Fengdu, so revolt is the only way out now." Sai Yuan Wei said. Outside the hall, God Kai Xiu's voice rang out once more, a little more impatient now. "Cult Master Qin, if you don't come out, I'm going in." The young patriarch suddenly said, "Cult Master Qin, why did King Yama didn't punish you directly and let you roam around the city freely? If your crime is really severe, shouldn't you be guarded tightly in the prison?" When he asked this, everyone came to a sudden realization: Qin Mu didn't look like a prisoner was supposed to look. Instead, he could still visit his friends and family in Fengdu and even give them a beating. "Before King Yama punished you, who else did he see?" Qin Mu nodded. "He dealt with Xing'an and shaman god Kuei. Xing'an was released by him and shaman god Kuei was to be studied by numerous ghost kings, because of his Youdu spells. King Yama also wanted to study the divine arts of shaman god Kuei, so he let me out first. In that case, the thing you have done is small." The young patriarch smiled. "I know that what Xing'an is big, but King Yama still released him. Shaman god Kuei is a god of Youdu, so the things he did should be even worse. Since they were punished first, this means that their crimes were above yours. Your crime is much smaller than theirs. Follow God Kai Xiu. King Yama won't give you trouble." Numerous cult masters nodded and said, "Just go. If King Yama wants to kill you, we'll go seize the execution grounds and the passage to reincarnation." Qin Mu relaxed and walked out of Hall of Wen Yuan. God Kai Xiu stood on the head of a stone lion pruning his feathers. When he saw him coming out, he pulled out his beak from his feathers and said, "Follow me." Qin Mu went over while asking, "Senior Kai Xiu, King Yama is summoning me." "Don't talk, you have the smell of a living person," Kai Xiu said. "I hate people that still have breath. If you breathe your last, your words will be much more pleasant. Also, King Yama is not summoning you, he wants to interrogate you." They came to Hall of King Qin, and Qin Mu looked at the front of the hall. There was a pile of flesh fighting and struggling, as Xing'an still couldn't give up the corporeal body parts of other people. It was evident that he was reluctant to give up his own path. Even a wise man like Xing'an finds it hard to give up the benefits he had attained. As a result, he's blinded by greed. He couldn't help shaking his head. By being indecisive, Xing'an was delaying his life, but it was no surprise. He had been collecting other people's body parts diligently his whole life to take them for his own. Making him give them up now was to make him give up his path and deny his entire life. It was indeed hard to accept it. The greater the achievements and the willpower of a person were, the harder it was for them to change themselves and their understanding. It was hard to admit one's own mistake. The sky is turning bright. Suddenly, mournful shouts came from Fengju City, and Qin Mu hurriedly took a look at the source of them. He saw huge beasts lying on roofs of the halls and looking up at the sky while shouting, "All homes and all cities be careful. The sky is turning bright." In Fengju City, the roaming souls filled the sky as they scrambled in all directions. On the land, numerous awe-inspiring gods and devils were running left and right, trying to find places to hide. Qin Mu was slightly stunned and asked, "God Kai Xiao, what happens when the sky is bright?" God Kai Xiao was unconcerned. "The sun is coming out. They have to hide or else the fire of pure yang from the sky will burn them. This sun is different from the one you see outside." Qin Mu was bewildered. Suddenly, the darkness withdrew rapidly and the foggy Fengju became incomparably bright. It was his first time seeing the city in the day, and he saw the streets that were bustling with gods and devils suddenly become cold and cheerless. All of the inhabitants had shut their doors, and the roaming souls had delved into the abyss. The huge beasts on the halls had all hid inside, and the entire Fengju had become quiet instantly. Next, white light became red as an incomparably huge sun blazing with flames rose in the horizon. In an instant, flames came from the east, surging over like the flowing sea that flooded the sky and covered the earth. All the streets were filled, and all the palaces and houses were drowned out. The blazing fire of pure yang swallowed up the cities of Fengju, the blazing heat almost warping the space. Qin Mu bathed in the fire of pure yang and saw flesh, blood, and meridians gradually appearing on his skeleton body. Looking down, he could even see the 5 viscera and 6 bowels in his ribs. Meanwhile, when he looked into the window of the hall where the gods and devils were hiding, their flesh and blood were gradually fading away, revealing white bones. The true fire of pure yang was harmless to him, but the corporeal bodies of the gods and devils of Fengju could be burned while their souls and primordial spirits could be incinerated. In the east, the huge sun became hotter and hotter until it was bright red. Incomparably huge palace halls could be faintly seen on the sun, and in front of them were giant drums. Valiant gods and devils were beating the drum frantically, sending the true fire of pure yang from the sun into Fengju. On the sun, there were 10,000 sacred halls, 10,000 drums, and 10,000 giants that were beating the drums frantically. True fire was spewed out and flooded Fengju. This is... Qin Mu's mind trembled. He suddenly heard a shriek and turned back to look. He saw the big ball of flesh that was Xing'an being burned by the true fire of pure yang. Dozens of faces distorted as they struggled and shrieked in pain. The many bodies were fading away after being burned by the true fire, revealing Xing'an's true body. Xing'an was also in unbearable pain. At that moment, he suddenly jumped up and splashed into the river of helplessness. The fog in the river under the bridge churned as monsters moved to swallow him. Xing'an. Qin Mu quickly came to the side of the river. The fog became thicker to defend against the flames of the sun, so he couldn't see any traces of Xing'an. He fell into Youdu. God Kai Xiao flapped his wings. The true fire of pure yang was ineffective against him, but he still hurried them. Faster, King Yama is still waiting for you. Qin Mu composed himself, and followed him into Hall of King Qin. Inside it, King Yama was still clad in a black cape. His face and body were hidden in the darkness. Qin Mu looked around, but didn't see any of the ghost kings. Kai Xiao, you may go now. King Yama sat on the throne in Hall of King Qin, so his voice came from high above. Understood. God Kai Xiu left hall of King Qin. On the throne, King Yama flipped through a book which rustled. Only he and Qin Mu were left in, and he seemed to be perfectly fine from the rising sun. Qin Mu was anxious, but could do nothing. After a while, King Yama stood up, and the light in hall of King Qin became dim. Qin Mu instantly felt as though he was shrouded in darkness. Are you from Carefree Village? Who is your father? Qin Mu was slightly stunned, not understanding why he suddenly asked that. My father is Qin Hanjin, my ancestral hometown should be Carefree Village, but I wasn't born there. Qin Hanjin. King Yama stared blankly at him as he said in a low voice, has it come to the generation of Han? Yu, De, Chang, Ming, Han, Feng, Huan, Zhen. The Qin of your generation should already be more than 100th generation. He picked up the book he was reading and searched for the Han word. Han is the 106th generation, Feng is the 107th generation. Your original name isn't Qin Mu, since there should be a Feng word in your name. Qin Mu nodded, but he didn't say his original name. After meeting Grandmaster, he realized how dangerous it was to say his real name. With a person like King Yama who controlled Fengdu, it was even more dangerous. Even though there was Hall of King Qin, and King Yama had the family history of Qin, Qin Mu still had to be careful. It's right that you didn't tell me your name. The world is indeed abnormally dangerous, said King Yama. My surname is also Qin, but it was given to me. I'm adopted. I was originally nothing at all, an orphan that was alone and had nobody to rely on. His Majesty allowed me to enter the family register of Qin family, so my name is on it. Qin Mu understood. He said he wasn't originally from the Qin family, but he was conferred the surname Qin and taken in as an adopted child. It's been a long time since I saw a visitor from Carefree Village. King Yama walked to him at the front of the hall. Looking at the Fengdu being bathed in flames, he said, I had originally thought His Majesty would come back to this place from Carefree Village, but I never expected that even after waiting for 20,000 years for him, I would still not have seen him. Only his 107th descendant has come. When you used that Youdu divine art to seize a few souls from me, I noticed that your appearance looks similar to that of His Majesty, which was why I didn't stop you. Qin Mu still had some doubts and probed. What you mean is founding emperor is still alive? King Yama's face was shrouded in the black robe, and even the most intense flames couldn't penetrate into the darkness under it. His Majesty is still alive. After Carefree Village was opened, he led the last gods out of this world, preserving his strength for a counterattack. His Majesty is powerful and wise, so he knew that danger was approaching long before it came. So he had ordered me to open up Fengdu, making a place for the gods that couldn't leave in time to hide until the day we will rise again. This wait has lasted for 20,000 years. You said you weren't born in Carefree Village earlier, so where were you born? Qin Mu was silent for a moment before saying astringently, Youdu. Even King Yama couldn't help being astonished. He suddenly turned to look at Qin Mu, and the black cape fluttered up with a wave motion as though it was being blown by the wind. Youdu. You weren't born in Carefree Village, but in Youdu. Qin Mu still couldn't see the face under the black robe, and just nodded. My parents were headed to Great Ruins from Carefree Village, but they were ambushed on their way. The casualties were high, and the lucky survivors escaped into Youdu. I was then born there. He had discovered his birth in Ghost Valley, and from the time trace in that ship, his mother had still been holding him in her womb. The precious ship suffered the attacks of gods and devils, getting struck down to the bottom of Ghost Valley, embedding itself between the seal of the two worlds. To avoid the extraterritorial devils, his mother led the people of the ship to seek refuge in Youdu. Qin Mu should have been born in Youdu, but he didn't know how he was brought to Great Ruins after he was born and floated down surging river to disabled elderly village. Granny Sai had heard the cries of an infant and picked him up to bring to the village. He was born in Youdu, and there was no doubt about that. You were born in Youdu, the tone of King Yama held some disappointment. I thought it would be an old swallow returning to lead us into battle, finishing what wasn't done. Never did I expect to see a new swallow. It would have been as well, but in the end, it wasn't a new swallow either, just one chick. Hee, founding emperor, you are really carefree in Carefree Village, having already forgotten that you still have people waiting for you in this world to make a comeback. His tone was slightly angry. Carefree Village is not a tender village nor an unmoved village. It's a place for you to make a comeback, and not a place for you to sink into oblivion. In Great Ruins, there are still countless gods and devils that are waiting silently for you to return. They are waiting for you to raise your flag and fight. His cape was still fluttering. Only when his heart was roused or when his fighting spirit was overflowing would his cape tremble violently. Suddenly, his aura weakened and he became slightly dispirited. I don't believe an emperor, who had founded an era, would be willing to accept defeat and become silent. Yet, I have already waited for 20,000 years, and the stone statues in Great Ruins and the ghosts in Fengdu have also waited 20,000 years. Why have you not returned? Qin Mu looked at him quietly, not knowing what to say. King Yama had been anticipating a guest from Carefree Village, and hoping for the news of founding emperor for 20,000 years. Yet what he found was only Qin Mu, a person that was born in Youdu although he had the bloodline of founding emperor. Qin Mu wasn't the person he was waiting for. Even if it was Qin Hanjin, at least he could encourage him and bring news of Carefree Village. Yet Qin Mu, who was born in Youdu, was completely clueless about Carefree Village. The identity of founding emperor's descendant couldn't soothe the heart of loyal soldiers that had waited for 20,000 years. After a long time, King Yama's breath returned to normal. The eyes under the black robe shifted to Qin Mu as he said, "You were born in Youdu, and it is the same Fengdu. They are both the worlds of the dead. I have never heard of humans being born in the world of the dead. Let me see if there's anything wrong with you." Qin Mu stared blankly, as he didn't understand him. Suddenly, King Yama started walking around him and speaking in a solemn voice. "There are few people in Youdu, but monsters can be born in Youdu. They are a combination of spirits and Youdu's devil nature. You have seen the monsters under Bridge of Helplessness, which are from Youdu. You being born in Youdu is different from how those monsters were born from the grievances of heaven and earth and the devil nature. You were born from the womb, but you might be contaminated by the devil nature of Youdu." Contaminated by the devil nature of Youdu? Qin Mu probed. "What you mean is?" He was slightly shocked. A devil god had once said that he was a devil just like him. Had it been not lying, and he actually had devil nature on him. And he had it since the moment he was born. King Yama didn't continue speaking. Instead, he lifted the hood of the black robe and revealed his face beneath it. Before Qin Mu could see it, the two eyes were like swirling whirlpools which sucked his mind inside. "Don't be scared. I'm just exploring your soul to see if it's different from humans who are born in the normal world." Qin Mu felt his world spinning as though he was situated in the center of two eyes. They were scarlet like blood and strangely large. The pupils looked at him with from the left and right, while he was spinning continuously, unable to fall to the bottom. He seemed to just go down into boundless darkness, with a never-ending sinking sensation. When King Yama spoke, his words seemed to be extremely far from him, even further than the 9 heavens above. "There has been no human that was ever been born in Youdu before, and I don't know what happens when a human is born in Youdu. However, I can guess that when you were born, something extremely terrifying happened. The devil nature and souls roaming around in Youdu would have tried to enter your body. Your mother should have been able to defend against the roaming souls in Youdu, but she might not have been able to keep the devil nature away. I want to see what Youdu has done to you. Qin Mu tried his best to stabilize his mind, and the jade pendant on his neck suddenly floated up. The light hummed as it burst outward as though it was defending him against King Yama's blood eyes. The two blood eyes grew bigger, and the light of the jade pendant got brighter. In the end though, the two blood eyes of King Yama suppressed the light of the jade pendant. Qin Mu wanted to struggle, but he couldn't muster any strength at all. He could only let that two nightmare-like blood eyes to continue prying and suppressing him. He felt that his corporal body didn't have any strength, as though it had been detached from his soul. It felt as though he was drowning and couldn't breathe anymore. His soul was slowly floating out of his corporeal body. At that moment, Qin Mu suddenly stopped spinning and whispers came from his surroundings. It was like countless devils hidden in the boundless darkness were talking in low voices. Those whispers gradually came closer, growing louder and louder, noisier and noisier. They finally became countless voices that bombarded him with different words in different languages, splitting his head with the pain. They were so noisy that his thoughts and consciousness were becoming scattered and messy. Finally, all of the voices overlapped together and became a single one. It was Youdu's devil language. "Shut up!" Qin Mu shouted out angrily, but what came out from his mouth wasn't the language of humans. It was Youdu's devil language. Suddenly, terrifying energy burst out from his body, and it could suddenly move. He was still located between the two blood eyes, standing there solitarily. Behind him was boundless darkness, but a seam split apart in the there. It opened up, and whispers began again. The seam grew bigger and bigger, until light flowed out. With a hum, a huge eyeball appeared behind him and rotated left and right. That eye presented a strange pupil, and that was three pupils squeezed together. They were also rotating while changing their directions. Devil light emanated from the eye as though there were black butterfly wings growing from its sides. It was pretty and flirtatious yet extremely strange. "Shut up!" Qin Mu hugged his head while shouting angrily. "Stop being noisy!" Whoosh! The space in the surroundings trembled violently like cracking glass. King Yama was shocked by the power in that roar, and could only stare blankly at the bewitching eye behind him. He muttered, "You were born in Youdu, and are indeed affected by Youdu's devil nature. It is in your body, but it was being suppressed by the jade pendant. Now that I've suppressed the jade pendant, I've released your devil nature. Stop being noisy." The Youdu's devil language from Qin Mu's mouth flowed smoothly like never before, and when his voice rang out, the space in the surroundings instantly shattered. The time and space created by the blood eyes of King Yama crumbled. Behind him, another seam appeared as another eye was about to open. King Yama felt his hair stand on ends. It was as if he was standing in front of a huge, terrifying beast that was about to wake up. "What fierce devil nature! I can't let you out." He made his move brazenly, and the two blood eyes withdrew rapidly. His cape fluttered and covered the heaven and earth, shrouding the entire hall of King Qin. He mobilized all his strength to suppress the devil nature in Qin Mu's body. A voice full of the devil nature came from Hall of King Qin in fluent Youdu. "Merely a small ghost and you dare to suppress me." Boom. Hall of King Qin trembled violently as another rumble rang out. Hall of King Qin trembled a few more times, and the pillars inside fell left and right. The roof of the hall suddenly split, and the hall shuddered as though it could collapse anytime. Soon though, the hall regained its peace. Qin Mu opened his eyes and looked around in a daze. In front of him, a few huge pillars had broken as though sliced into pieces by sharp claws. There were a few more that were bent from being smashed. There was true fire of pure yang leaking in through the cracks within Hall of King Qin, burning the wood with tongues of flame. It looked as if there had been a huge battle as creaks came from the roof. Lumps of dust and bricks fell from time to time. What happened? Qin Mu was at a loss. Don't you know what had happened? King Yama's voice came from the darkness. Qin Mu immediately looked over, and saw King Yama embedded in the center of a bent pillar. It seemed as though he'd been smashed against it by a terrifying power. Qin Mu was dumbstruck and immediately went forward, wanting to help him, but King Yama waved his hand and struggled out of the pillar himself. Do you really not know what happened? Qin Mu shook his head. He was completely clueless. He only remembered King Yama's eyes looking at him as he continued to sink between them. It's also good that you don't know. Keep the jade pendant of Carefree Village with you all the time. You cannot lose it. No matter what, you can't lose it. King Yama let out a shaky breath and said calmly, this jade pendant is of utmost importance to you. If you lose it, terrifying things will happen. Qin Mu pushed his jade pendant back under his clothes and asked, can I show the jade pendant to others? King Yama trembled violently, and he said sternly, it's best not to. Qin Mu smiled then. I have taken the jade pendant off to show others numerous times before. King Yama let out another shaky breath. That is their luck, and they should celebrate still being alive. You can go now. Kai Xiao, send him out. God Kai Xiao popped his head in and looked around curiously. When he saw the miserable situation of Hall of King Qin, he shrunk his neck back and said, Cult Master Qin, follow me. Qin Mu had doubts. He hurriedly walked out of Hall of King Qin and asked God Kai Xiao in a low voice, what happened just now? I have no idea. Kai Xiao shook his head and said, seems like some terrifying existence attacked Hall of King Qin. Don't speak, you have the smell of a human. Also, King Yama's voice came from behind. You can walk into the darkness of great ruins, and it won't injure you at all. If there's a chance, you should take a trip to Youdu. Qin Mu was slightly stunned. He turned back to cry out, I can enter the darkness of great ruins. Before King Yama could reply, a loud rumble suddenly came from behind them, and Hall of King Qin crumbled straight on the ruler of Fengdu. Qin Mu was astonished. He turned to look at Kai Xiao, but the god buried his head in his feathers, pretending to see nothing. For Kai Xiao to be the trusted aide of King Yama, his reputation wasn't undeserved. He was firm in not looking at King Yama's sorry form, which was the wise method of protecting oneself. If it were other people, they would have rushed into the debris to save King Yama. Qin Mu sighed ruefully in his heart. Saving King Yama would show that one was loyal, but the person would also see the sorry state of King Yama, causing damage to his wise and strong image. There were merit and demerit to it, but since one wouldn't know if the merit or demerit would be bigger, the best was to pretend one didn't see anything. Besides, the collapse of the hall wouldn't hurt King Yama, so it was better to not show one's loyalty by rushing over to him. King Yama said that I can walk through the darkness of great ruins and not get hurt. Is this true or not? Qin Mu was slightly hesitant, because going into the darkness concerned his life. If it wasn't true, he would die if he went out, so he didn't dare to try. Ever since he was young, he had been taught by the villagers of disabled elderly village about how there were great terrors in the darkness, and he was not to go in no matter what. On top of that, during Qin Mu's growth, he had also seen the horror of the darkness, so he had never even considered the possibility that the darkness might not touch him. He had entered the darkness numerous times, but he had always relied on treasures, or strong practitioners, that were like gods to protect himself from being closed in on by the darkness. He'd used Shingen's chest, village chief's protection, or dragon-rearing sovereign's protection to remain unharmed. He was somewhat afraid of attempting to enter the darkness without any protection. Let's go, Kai Xiao hurried him. After sending you off, I can rest. God Kai Xiao, I still have to go to where Heavenly Saint Cult and the human emperors are to fetch the dragon Qin and the chest. Kai Xiu could only bring him to where the past cult masters of Heavenly Devil Cult stayed. All the doors were locked tight, and the dragon Qin was shut outside by the young patriarch. He was currently wagging his tail and saying sweet things to get patriarch to open the door. The young patriarch didn't acknowledge him no matter what, only shouting from inside, "In the journey of life and death, I'm already dead while you are still alive, so we can't be together. Follow cult master out." The dragon Qin clawed at the door and cried loudly. The young patriarch was also choking as he held back his tears. He wanted to open the door, but he was afraid that the fellow would come in and rub against him again, so he steeled his heart. Qin Mu called the dragon Qin over and said with a smile, "Fatty dragon, no need to be sad. Patriarch is living fine here, and we are living perfectly fine outside. We can always come to see him anytime in the future." The dragon Qin walked over. When he was touched by the true fire of pure yang, flesh slowly grew on his body. The incomparably huge sun had risen very high by then and become so large that it looked like it could fall out of the sky at any moment. Qin Mu raised his head and saw that the sacred halls on the sun were made of gold. The gods and devils in front of them could be faintly seen still beating the drums frantically. They were using the true fire of pure yang to refine fengdu. The sun was so close to them that Qin Mu began suspecting that the gods and devils on the sun would attack at any moment. They don't dare to attack. God Kai Xiu pruned his feathers calmly, unruffled in the mid of the chaos. This is fengdu, which is part of Youdu. They look close, but they are actually very far away. There's a world barrier between us. On top of that, we have fought a few times in the past, and they were the ones on the losing end. They only dare to hide in the sun and beat their drums. Qin Mu was puzzled about it, so he asked, "The sun in this sky is different from the one in eternal peace, so this sun is the sun of great ruins." "It's real," God Kai Xiu said. "The sun of eternal peace is fake." Qin Mu was speechless. The sun before him was too terrifying. Luckily, they were living in the facade of the sun, moon, and stars. Otherwise, if the people of eternal peace saw such a terrifying sun, even the emperor might go crazy. "Patriarch, do you have money?" Qin Mu asked through a slit in the door. "Entering fengdu requires fengdu gold coins, and I only had 3 to get here. I need coins to take the boat." The young patriarch stuffed a few gold coins out through the slit. "I just died, so I don't have much money, be thrifty." Qin Mu acknowledged it and went to knock on the other cult masters' doors. "Fellow cult masters, if you don't pay up, I'll stop your offerings and dismantle your memorial tablets. You scum, who bullies their ancestors. Isn't it just money? Take it." Qin Mu knocked on every door and extorted about 200 fengdu gold coins. He then went to the residences of the human emperors and asked the strange beasts in front of Sacred Hall of 5 Yang, "Is first ancestor back?" The 2 strange beasts ran into the hall and threw the Daotai out. "Old master still hasn't returned." The Daotai landed on the ground and got burned by the true fire of pure yang. With a few bangs, it turned back into a huge chest that followed obediently behind the dragon Qin. "Cult Master Qin, it's time to leave." Kai Xiu hurried him. "God Kai Xiu, please wait a moment." Qin Mu went to second ancestor's home, who opened the door, but didn't walk out, as he was worried about being burned by the true fire of pure yang. "Both of my sleeves are flowing in the breeze, and I really don't have money, so I can only go to teacher's house to freeload." Qin Mu took out a few fengdu gold coins and smiled. "I know you have noble character and unquestionable integrity, so I'm here to give you a few gold coins to tide through this period of time. When I go back to Hall of Human Emperors, I'll burn some money for all the ancestors." This video will end here.